Lenny Reed, Dynomite Diesel Products. I want to talk to you about new versus reman today. New. Everything here is new, and it's been calibrated to the factory's OEM test plan. Let's talk about that. Factory OEM test plan at idle, 10.5 mm cubed plus or minus 5.2. It can idle at 5.3 or it can idle at 15.7 millimeters cubed and still get a green check mark. The VL, which is the big end, that can be 126.2 for their sweet spot, but it's plus or minus 5.5. You can get all the way down to 120.7 mm cubed. You can go all the way up to 131.7 mm cubed, still get a green check mark. What's that mean? So if we take 325 horsepower, we divide that by 126.2, which is the sweet spot. At the bottom end, you're going to end up with, and if you had 6 of these things matched up on the bottom end, you'd end up with a 308 horsepower engine. On the top end, if you had 6 of these things that were matched on the top end of the factory test plan, you'd have a 337 horsepower engine. This, everything inside of this that's critical and wearing gets thrown away and replaced with new stuff. Really good quality parts. Do we replace the solenoids? In the past, we haven't. Are we going to in the future? Yes. Why? Not because I believe it's going to make a better part, but because you guys asked for it and the solenoids look pretty, so we decided that we're going to start giving you new solenoids. What kills the solenoid? Contamination. As the injector parts get slower, the solenoid has to work really, really hard to overcome that. And if the air gap is set incorrectly, the solenoid strakes too far, armature moves too far, solenoid has to work, and it shortens the life of that. If those two things aren't done, then both these solenoids, even this one on its second life cycle, could live as long as this one. This one could live a very short life if you're replacing brand new injectors into an environment that's dirty and nasty, and you kill the solenoids unintentionally, not knowing about it. Be sure you keep your fuel tank clean, use good treatment, service filters once in a while, like every other oil change kind of a thing. Now, things that are different and things that are better about our stuff versus even a brand new part. We always have these. We hardly ever run out. There's hardly ever a back order. Constantly a back order on brand new parts. We the people have decided that SAC style nozzles are better than VCO style nozzles. I also don't necessarily know that that's a total fact, but you've asked for it, so we're giving you SAC style nozzles because they are a good part and everybody wants it. We can get you SAC style nozzles from stock up to whatever power level you want. The SAC style nozzle is something that's done in-house, so we can do that on your command. We stock them, they're on the shelf, they're ready to go right now. You order these today, we know that they're going to work very, very well. Our injector compared to a factory test plan. Our injector is going to be on the idle. Where the sweet spot is 10.5, we're going to go from 10.5 up to about 13 mm cubed or cc's delivered at idle. We're not going to allow it to go down. And the reason for that is because when you're at minus 25, minus 40 degrees, and you start an engine that's got a bunch of injectors that idle with a green check mark, clear down at 5 or 6 mm cubed, that thing barely has enough horsepower to spin the oil pump. They just don't run that good. But if you get it to where it's 10.5 to 13 kind of a thing, they really start well, they run well. That's why our plan has that in it. Our factory replacement style injector at the big end, we're going to go 126 plus or minus 5.5? No. We're going to be like 126, 127, 128, somewhere in that range, because we would rather give you every single bit of the power that the factory gave you from the factory initially or intended to, plus just a little bit more. Like I say, these things, factory test plan, you're able to go up to 131.7 mm cubed. We're going to calibrate this 98, 99, or 100% of 131.7. 2% deviation rate instead of like, well, this is basically 50% down at idle, 50% up at idle, and it's 9% deviation rate at wide open throttle. We're going to be within 3 mm cubed at idle, and we're going to be within 2% on the big end. Our remans aren't junk. There are some things out there that I wouldn't advise buying, but our stuff is not any of it. Our stuff 100% all the wearing parts get replaced, new control valve, new nozzle, new armature, shim stacks all measured correctly. Everything in it's just really good stuff. I trust these. All of our super metals get built off of this, not off of this. Because ultimately I have to open this up, go through and remeasure all the shim stack, modify control valves, do a bunch of stuff to these things to make them run as good as our Reman would right out of the box. There you go. Lenny Reed, Dynomite Diesel Products. Have a good weekend.